And we're back after 4 months. Today we're going to do some historical reflection, talk about SEO, clickbait, and the nature of online ministry, comment on Rise and Fall of Mars Hill, and then we're going to talk about future episode ideas. Welcome to Apologetics from the Attic, the show that seeks to teach and defend the Christian faith in a post-Christian culture. And now, broadcasting from an attic in an undisclosed location somewhere outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, here is your host, Dave Lewis. Hey everybody, Dave Lewis here. It's great to be back. It's been 4 long months since I've recorded an episode. The last thing I did actually was a debate with A.K. Richardson. Let me show you that. And actually, I'm using OBS Studio for those of you who know of these things. OBS Studio. So I'm still trying to learn it, but I think if I click this button here, boom, there's my Google Chrome. And yeah, I was looking at Derek Morrell. Derek hasn't done some stuff for a couple months either. There it is. Can true regenerate believers lose their salvation? And I thought that was a pretty good debate. Anyway, if you want to check that out, let me bring this out. So 4 months of not doing anything. And, when I started Apologetics from the Attic, it was, let me pull this up. 103 episodes I have. This is on podcast, Spreaker, if you're interested in these things. And the first episode I dropped October 30th, 2019, was a review of Leighton Flowers. I called it A Gentle Calvinist. I was trying to brand things early on. How can I brand things to get people to check out my stuff? So, the history was, I don't know why I first started a podcast. I just went into one of these manic episodes that I go through where I'm just like, okay, I'm going to do this, and got all fired up about it. And I decided to purchase the domain. I thought of the name for a while. What's a name? I'm doing the research. What's a unique name for a podcast, for a website? And I came up with Apologetics from the Attic because I'm sitting on the 3rd floor of my house right now. It's not really an attic, but it's a full 3rd floor. We got a big Victorian house. And I'm in the corner here with my books behind me. And early on, I didn't have, the books were a little more scattered. Now I got my little busts of Augustine and Luther and Calvin up there behind me, as you can see up there. And, I just decided, okay, I'm going to... Yeah, and the thing that got me most excited, of course, was to defend Calvinism and to go after people online by name and all this stuff. And I quickly learned the temptation of online podcasting website. I built the website, apologeticsfromtheattic.com, purchased the web domain, hosted on WordPress, learned about WordPress, and put hours and hours and hours and hours and days into building that website and figuring out audio and video production and editing, and bought this microphone that I'm using. The Blue Yeti is what I use, and all this stuff. I mean, so much energy and time put into it. And at first, I think my motives were pure as they could be. Of course, they weren't totally pure, and lurking behind the scenes was the world, the flesh, and the devil, of course. And let me pull this up. Early on, this was kind of my philosophy. I actually went back and listened to this podcast. It was called Catholic, Evangelical, and Reformed. And it's still one of the main videos on the website that comes up on the homepage. And as you can see, this is really what I wanted to characterize, because I wanted it to be balanced. So I wanted to focus on these 3 areas in teaching, defending the Christian faith, both, and that's the tagline of Apologetics from the Attic, teaching and defending the Christian faith in a post-Christian culture. So I wanted to both teach and defend, not just merely defend, attack, always bring up disagreements, but actually teach. So Catholic, Evangelical, and Reformed, and this is the framework that I still want to work with moving forward. But anyway, so here's what I discovered that's behind the scenes, and it's got to be a temptation for everybody who steps onto this type of platform. So we have the internet that has changed and revolutionized how we consume information, how people put information out here. This technology that is sitting in front of me, where I have a computer with a webcam and a microphone and a video production program that I can put together a video, edit it, produce it, have some quality to it, put it online for other people to watch. And then on top of that, you have the analytics. Now, this is where I got consumed and caught up. And when you get into how this affects the brain, how it affects the dopamine receptors in your brain, how it's a drug. You can get addicted to it. So we all know about Facebook. When you have a Facebook page or Twitter, even everybody understands this. A lot of people, you have your own Facebook page, right? Just a personal one, where you put up a photo, you put up a thing, you put up whatever, and you open your Facebook, app, and you have your little bell notification. Here, I'll open mine right now. See, you open it up. Can you see that? And right there, the little bell notification that's got the little numbers, and you click on it, and it's, oh, wow, how many people liked my video and liked my photo and shared it. And that feedback loop, it gives you this pleasure of like, oh, wow, somebody saw it, somebody paid attention to it. Well, my friend, when you get into this realm of putting stuff up on Facebook, putting it up on YouTube, putting it up on podcast audio platforms, and the feedback loop that's created to see how many people are viewing your website, listening to and viewing your content you're putting up, oh, it's a whole nother level. So let me show you. Let me make this window a little bit bigger if I can. Still experimenting with sizing this and stuff like that, because I don't want it to cover that's why I'm sitting kind of over in the corner here. So let me go in here. So let's start with this. So so this is the website. So this is the analytics for WordPress. So this is behind almost every website you see. Whoever owns it, whoever has the admin access can get in and can look at this data. Now, early on my website, as you can see, I don't know if you can see that, but so these bars, right, that you're looking at if you're watching, there's these bars, and it shows you the total views, and I broke this down by month. So you can break it down by day, how many people visited your website, and then you can break it down by week or month or year, and you can break it down by what they clicked on, like what part of your website they clicked on, if you have a blog on there, if you have links, and it'll tell you that. So early on, I have my audio sermons are getting clicked on. Regeneration Precedes Faith, that's a blog post. Gospel of Mark verse by verse. This is the website. I'd filled the website up early on with content I already had, like a bunch of sermons that I have preached that are recorded in audio, and that was there. And then here, same thing. We got some blog posts are getting looked at, audio sermons, Bible teachings, etc., etc. And at this point in the Apologetics from the Attic, I hadn't fully figured out or realized how to connect blog posting with search engine optimization, SEO. If you hear that term, that means search engine optimization. How it is that blogging is very important because that enables someone to Google search your content. So once I started figuring that out, then I started blogging my so here's one of the first ones that I figured out how to get hits. So Clint, let me click on this. I kind of get a mess. Okay, Clint Schneckloth. So you don't agree with everything in the creed, you're in good company. So here's what I realized. If I put something in the title of the blog that makes it searchable by Google, and especially if it's something that's a current event, something that's going on, well then when people search, they're already searching for this item, so then it will lead people to my website, to my content. So that was a breakthrough for me. I guess I knew it because I had done stuff with my work, some SEO stuff, and I'd learned and I'd listened to some audio stuff about how to do it. But anyway, so I get into that. So then I learned, and this is what I learned. So as I'm going through, so notice I can click on the month here. If you're watching, I can click on the month. I'm in April of 2020. I can see, so the home page was actually the top there, 78 visits. In May, in May, this is where I really figured it out. This is when John Steingart of Hawk Nelson came out publicly and said he was a apostate, renounced his Christian faith. So I was really able to piggyback off of that story. And at that point, that was the most views I had ever gotten. 428 views, 235 visitors to my website. Now, that's small potatoes. I mean, you got to understand, some of these websites get millions of views a day, millions of visitors a day. But for me, I mean, that's a dopamine hit. Wow, look at this. Now, then I started getting greedy. Okay, I remember when I did this, didn't feel right, but, I was like, I'm doing it. So this is, I remember COVID's going on over this time, and a lot of my content is, during this time, March, April, May, if you look at my YouTube channel. Now let me go over to that, my YouTube channel. I had the analytics up, but we can come back to that, because there's the YouTube analytics if you're watching. So lifetime of YouTube, 11,700 views, 1.6K hours of watch time. How do I get at it? Let me go to my channel. So, back during this time, my YouTube channel has, coronavirus and the theology of the cross was the biggest thing I was doing. So I was pumping out episodes like every day. See, look at this, the Gospel of Mark, and then, the coronavirus and the theology of the cross, part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all through Holy Week, Good Friday. And then I was doing interviews with pastors. And these things weren't getting, look at 8 views, 9 views, 12 views, 3 views, 7 views. These pastor interviews, 48 views, 17 views. These things aren't getting a lot of views, which, is fine. But at the time, I'm starting to get obsessed. I'm starting to get building myself up on how many views I'm getting on YouTube and this and that. And I figured out the formula, not so much on YouTube. YouTube's weird. I still haven't figured out, like, the most views I've ever gotten on YouTube for a video, just organically without even really doing anything, is this one. This 2.4K views, coronavirus and the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. So this is, and I did this was like before COVID shut everything down. This was like in March, or this is like in February or January. It was like COVID was like a thing over in Europe and over in China, but it wasn't over here yet. But anyway, that one, I think that organically got views because people were searching for 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, or apocalypse and coronavirus, and that, because there's a internal search engine built in YouTube that's kind of like Google, and it has an algorithm to it that if people are searching for things, and it'll push your video to the top. And then, the recommended videos thing that you have, that's the holy grail of YouTube. If you can get on people's recommended videos as they are going through watching videos. Anyway, so I'm doing this, but here is really where it's September 2020. So as I click on it, this is my record-breaking month for website visits. And what is the thing that I did? What's the piece of content that I released that put me through the roof? It's Gabe. Here, let me open it. Let me go to the post actually so you can just see the whole post. So part of the thing is you can see the title of the blog post, and I think I did this for the title of the YouTube video too, was purely to try to get search engine optimization and things people might search for with the word Gabe Rench. So Gabe is one of the hosts of not Apologia. Why can't I think of distinct? Cross Politic. There it is. Cross Politic. Doug Wilson. They're associated with Doug Wilson, Moscow, Idaho, Christchurch, Moscow. And if you remember this story, they were having a psalm sing in the parking lot of City Hall, and it was right at the peak of wearing face masks and things being shut down, and they went to the parking lot of City Hall, and this psalm sing was supposedly a protest, and and this, my thing was, he provoked them, and it's a whole video I did reviewing the thing and reviewing them and reviewing their stuff, and here, so the title is Gabe Rench provokes Moscow, Idaho police, gets arrested, and they taunt police. Cross Politics goes emergency live, claims it is their Daniel moment, and gets 100+ K views in 24 hours. So, I'm criticizing them for getting 100K views. Oh my gosh, look at how they are, using the system and getting all these views by making something sensational, and then I'm doing the same thing. I'm leeching off of them to get my own views. And you start to realize these things about how insidious this is. And here's what I wrote. I don't know if you saw it yet, but Gabe Rench from Cross Politic was arrested yesterday. And then see all these blue links. So I learned also, if you want your search engine optimization, you have to put. So see how I put CBN News, Washington Times. See that? If you put what Google considers reputable source links into your posts on your website, the Google search engine will reach in and will see that and will promote your, if someone searches for these things, it will promote that up to the top because they consider that you are more reputable if you are yourself are putting reputable links into your page. Anyway. And if the fellows at Cross Politics are to be believed, it was because they were being persecuted for singing Amazing Grace. See Toby Sumter's remark at 8:15 and the Facebook video. Is this really the case? For the police just waiting to pounce and execute their tyrannical reign upon the poor, humble Christians of Christchurch? I was really getting into this. Are we to celebrate and cheer this unconscionable violation of their civil rights? Or was this an obvious pre-planned publicity stunt that actually worked? As of the time of me writing this post, they have 103,000 views on Facebook in less than 24 hours. They even made CBN News in Washington Times. Let's see how many views they have now. I'm just curious. Let's see how many views this video has now. Let's see. Where's the views? It doesn't tell you. It's still up. Let's see if I click on that. Well, anyway, it's irrelevant. We can let that load. But so I did that. Let's see, 238.
Tweet it out on Twitter.
Tweet it out.
Tweet it out on Twitter.
And tweet it. Oh my goodness.
Oh, sorry. So there they are, hugging Gabe for getting arrested. This is Gabe had just got arrested and he just got released. Anyway, 238,000 views for that. So as you can. So my whole point, sorry, I went a little too long on that, but my whole point is that on my analytics, we go back to months, that was my biggest month. And how did I get so many views? I leached off of someone else who I was accusing of pulling stunts to simply get views and get clicks. But yet I'm doing the same thing to get views and to get clicks. Okay. And then let's see, January. Oh yeah. And this is the one where God really rebuked me. And if you notice, if you're watching January 2021, This wasn't even close to. This was only half of what I got in September with the Gabe Wrench thing. But look what, it's Trump. This is January. This is the riots, Capitol riots, January 6th. And I was commenting on Trump and January 6th and the riots. And of course, this got me some clicks. It still gets me clicks. Months and months later, I'll go on here and I'll look at this and I'll be like, oh, wow, 6 views of most of the TV media is not showing you what's going on in the Capitol riots. And I think that was just a blog post. That wasn't even a podcast or audio or video, anything. So I'm still getting clicks from that. So when I'm thinking of content to do on Apologetics from the Attic, many times all I'm thinking is, okay, let me watch the online world, find something that the Christian community is headline news, popular situation, something, and then I want to leech off of that, put that, and I'm learning how to get clicks from it. And I just got convicted by it. And then it actually physically, mentally burned me out, where I think I overloaded myself on just stat. Let me show you some other stats that I got obsessed with. Like, here's Spreaker. So this is if you are interested in a podcast hosting platform, it's $20 a month, and $20 a month gets you 500 hours of storage. So you can put 500 hours worth of audio, and you can put multiple podcasts on it too. So as you can see, there's my podcast, Apologetics from the Attic. And, I'll show you, where's the distribution? Is promotion or distribution? You can monetize the stuff. That's where listen, this is a whole nother level, the monetization part. I've never even dared to click on this. This is when you really, I can't even imagine. I was struggling enough just wanting people to see my stats, right? I didn't even mess with, as my stats go up, I can make money off it and get like money deposited into my bank account. That's a whole nother level. But that is what's going on online. People wake up every morning to get the clicks and get the views and get the things so they can make money. Some people have quit their full-time job because they're making enough money on their YouTube channel and on their podcast platform, and on, Facebook has a thing where they'll pay you money once you reach a certain number of views and followers and stuff like that. But anyway, so here's the stat situation for Spreaker. So you can go in. So in my lifetime of Apologetics from the Attic, I've had 3,208 downloads, which is child's play. Some people get that in 5 minutes. Like Ben Shapiro or popular podcasts like that. That happens when they release the program. After 2 minutes out, 3,000 people have downloaded it. But to me, I'm like, okay, I don't know the comparison early on. I'm just like, oh wow, look at these people. So this was my practice. Like today, I will, take this, edit it in my editing software, and I will post it on YouTube, and then I will post it on Facebook, and then I will make a blog post out of it, and then I will rip the audio off and I'll put it on here. And then, my addiction was, and it's not like I'm not going to look at this stuff ever again. Like I'm a new person. I'm never going to look at my analytics ever again. But, this is the first time I've had an episode for 4 months. I would let this, I'd post it in the morning, go to work, let it play out all day, come home, and take some time to come up here and check out my analytics. And I had to see, what am I doing? So let's look. So see, this breaks it down, 14. And I don't know what's going on here. It's, you can go to sources, and this is all from iHeartRadio. 3 Apple Podcasts, okay. So here's all the, just so you know, this is where Spreaker's cool. And I think most of them do this, actually. Most podcasting platforms do this. So here's all the places where, so you only post once. You post your audio onto Spreaker, upload it, put it there, go live with it, and it's available. And it automatically distributes it. Spreaker does, this is where you're paying the $20 a month. It automatically distributes it to all these platforms. iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts are the two biggest ones, obviously. And then Google Podcasts is getting big. And it just automatically puts it there for you. You don't have to go into each of these platforms individually and post your audio. It just puts them all there at the same time. So that's what's cool about this. But anyway, here's the... So can I go? Yeah, you can. I can go. Let's go like we did on... So these are the... So, this is where I'm getting, obsessed with. Okay, look at 167 downloads from Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Saying, the podcast. And here's the thing about podcasting. In every other, so you have your subscription. Now, YouTube has this feature. Facebook kind of does, but YouTube and the podcast platforms, when I post on a podcast, I don't know about you, but I use Apple Podcasts. When someone posts a new episode, it notifies me either through a notification if you have those on your phone, or when I go in to look at the podcasts, it will automatically show me the newest episodes. So I figured, well, you catch people's attention this way. So long story short, I realized that I'd become literally addicted to the feeling, the experience of looking at my analytics and seeing if my analytics were... Now look, my analytics have tanked. May, and then I stopped producing content basically. June, July, August. Nothing. Like for the whole month of August, 10 downloads. So I look at that and I feel fine about it. I feel better, kind of detoxed from this. So we'll see, I'll post this and see, did people download it? Oh, did people view it? Now, that's that. So, and then the YouTube analytics, I showed you that website, that's this and the other thing. So those of you venturing into this world of producing content to put online. And then, of course, in the midst of all of this is COVID. So that messed with my head. So I don't know how much of this was an escape from the trauma that we were all going through of COVID. Me being able to come up here and kind of create my own little online world and register my opinions about COVID, register my opinions. Like if you watch early on, I did a daily thing and I was going over that big world map of the COVID cases, and you can go in early on and see me going over the map and looking at all the COVID cases, how it spread into the United States, and it's pretty cool historical reference. So beware. Because if you're trying to do this, you can get caught up really quickly. And then, I can't even speak to monetizing. I don't know if anybody else has spoken to once you start making money off of this stuff and how that must drive. And, I pulled up his page because I like the guy a lot. I just discovered him. Where is it? Trey Van Camp. And I had seen this guy debate. Was it Leighton Flowers? He debated somebody, but I really like this guy, and I don't know how I know what it was. I searched for Rise and Fall of Mars Hill in the YouTube search engine, and it's an excellent episode, processing the rise and fall of Mars Hill Church, and him and his wife do this episode, but he really gets into talking about the temptation and the danger of you have to be controversial. You have to call people out by name. You have to be black and white. You have to be edgy. You have to get any kind of views online, to get traffic. I mean, that's just what people want. That's the content people want. Ben Shapiro, who, Daily Wire is one of the most, popular on Facebook. I mean, they crush it on Facebook with likes, shares, views. The analytics are through the roof. They know how to do this, to polarize and get the people, their audience, their base to watch. This is what media does now. But anyway, it's a really good episode to talk about the dangers of this and how we fall into this. and how that's what we want to do to get subscribers, to get clicks, to get links, and get obsessed with that. And should we as Christians do that? And then I was, this YouTube is failing Christians. I just started watching it, and so far it seemed really good. So what am I going to do now? Well, I don't know. And then in the midst of all this, so I've been thinking, why am I putting this down? I need to keep putting out content because I do enjoy it, and I do think I've had a couple people, just a couple. I'm not going to say, I've had, dozens of people. Now, a couple people who've reached out to me and said, hey, man, we really miss your podcast. Are you going to do any more content? So, I've been thinking about it. And then, of course, and it hit the scene, and I saw it, but then I didn't realize. I thought it would just be like, oh yeah, a podcast, Rise and Fall of Mars Hill, interesting. But then I have pastor friends of mine who normally aren't interested in that type of stuff, telling me, did you see that podcast, Rise and Fall of Mars Hill, or did you know about it? And I'm like, this pastor friend of mine is never into this kind of stuff, and they're talking about it. So I started listening, and then the Rise and Fall of Mars Hill has some stuff in it that is exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to this struggle I'm having. And so let me pull that up. So if you're not familiar, you should listen to it because it's all the rage right now, and there's more episodes to come, and everyone is waiting with bated breath when they're going to release the next episode, which should be soon. They haven't released an episode, and I think part of the reason why they're still producing them, and as part of the content part of this episode is I want to read this letter from the former communications director of Mars Hill who refused to do an interview with with Mike Cosper, the guy who's doing this podcast. So Mars Hill Church, Mark Driscoll, and this podcast, like I said, it's called the Rise and Fall. Why can I say fall? Rise and Fall of Mars Hill Church. And it's an interesting, first of all, it's very well produced. You don't realize how long it takes. Even if it's just pure audio. Now, if it's video, it's even crazier, double the time, literally. But audio, to cut together and splice together how this is done, the production value is excellent. The music and the cutting together different things and putting together different things, and even writing, the writing that goes into this, like the script that he's reading, which is being written out, and he's very good at reading it with good cadence, and it sounds good. It's really good. So I can see just the production value alone, let alone the content. This is a very good podcast. But it's episode after, and it's episode, which is an interesting way to do it, right? Release episodes to keep people interested. We live in it. My kids literally hate it when there's something that comes out, like on Disney Plus or Netflix, that you have to wait a week for the new episode to come out. They're like, "What is this? What kind of torture has been invented on me that I have to wait a week for the new episode to come out?" It's so funny. Where, I'm almost 40 years old. I'm like, that's how it always worked until the streaming services came out. You had to wait for the new episode. Anyway, they want the whole season to come out so they can binge the whole season in one day. What are we doing to our children with this? So you go through this, and, it's so, Who Killed Mars Hill, that first episode. So I'm looking at the episodes right now if you're listening on the Google Podcast, which is easier to look at. And I like this one. So I like this episode too. Boomers, the Big Sort, and Really, Really Big Churches. This is a really good episode if you want to understand the rise of the mega church and how that was an outgrowth of the situation in America post World War II, the big economic boom, the baby boomers, and then World War II, and how there was enough wealth and enough opportunity where people left the cities, and that's when the suburbs came about. I mean, the suburbs is a relatively new phenomenon in the United States of America. It's only 50 to 70 years old. In the 50s and 60s, this is when people moved out to the suburbs. And then it shows how, Robert Schuller was the main one, but then it shows Rick Warren, and then it shows Bill Hybels, and he talks about how these guys mastered how to get the upwardly mobile, economically successful baby boomer type to come to their church. And the strategies they used that were very effective. I mean, you have these churches that are growing by the thousands and thousands and thousands. And then, of course, he's using that as a foil to explain the rise of someone like a Mark Driscoll, and it's interesting, he does show these clips where Mark Driscoll early on is very critical of these men, but then he ends up realizing that they have wisdom and insight as to how to grow a church. So it's kind of an interesting back and forth relationship with them. And then, then it talks about how to, planning a church in Seattle. I don't remember everything in that one. You read the Bible, Ringo. I'll have to go back and listen to that one again. Jack's Raging Bile Duct. That's where they talk about the manliness of Mars Hill. And, you'll hear this from people. You'll hear one of the criticisms you'll get about the mainstream evangelical churches. It's too effeminate. And, the worship songs are all about me being in love with Jesus and Jesus is my boyfriend kind of thing. And Mark Driscoll came along and kind of tried to blow that out of the water and say this is about being a man and manhood. And then, the woman episode, that's been the most criticized one, about, toxic masculinity. And then they connect it to that. But listen to this yourself. I don't want to give too many of my opinions on it. This is a mixed bag. I think that, like with any documentary, the way it's framed and the way it's shaped and the way the story is told can really not give you the whole context, but it's kind of the nature of the documentary medium. And then The Brand. This is the one where you really got to listen to The Brand. The Brand is the one that really convicted me about what I was doing with Apologetics from the Attic, because early on, and it was like one of these things where it's Driscoll's talent as a communicator, as a leader, but then just being in the right place at the right time. So much of stuff, like me being the director of Teen Challenge, was just being in the right place at the right time, most of it. It wasn't that I was talented. It wasn't that I was this superstar. It was that I was there when a change needed to be made, and I stepped in, and I had the opportunity. But anyway, Mark Driscoll and Mars Hill Church, this is right when, and this episode explains it really well, when the internet in the medium of posting sermons online was just getting big, and being able to download sermons and then watching sermon videos online. So it was like he was there right at this perfect moment, and then he hired a team around him who was just figuring out the secret to how to get clicks, how to get downloads, how to get website visits, right? They were figuring it out. They were on the cutting edge of that, and that's what elevated Mark so much. And then you have the state of emergency, and he makes this point over and over again, and it is very true, that success in whatever you're doing will give you as the leader a ton of cover to do all kinds of things that normally you wouldn't be able to do, allowed to do, or you would get called on the carpet for if you weren't successful. So if you weren't successful, then it won't cover. It won't cover a lot of things. It will drown out. Your success drowns out criticism. It drowns out your issues. So anyway, let me read this letter real quick, because this kind of captures my struggle with it. And then this could be the end for this episode. This must have been, the inner workings of this podcast, Justin Dean, who was the director of communications for Mars Hill Church. So this was probably a very important interview that they wanted. And he went public with this letter as to why he's not he's not doing it. Hi, Mike. So this is him writing to Mike, the main guy who's doing the Rise and Fall of Mars Hill podcast. Thank you for your interest in my story. After taking time to catch up on the podcast, I've decided to decline participating. It's good to look back on Mars Hill and reflect on what happened, so I appreciate what you're doing. There is certainly a lot to be learned and a lot to discuss about what we could have done better. But the focus of the show so far seems to be asserting that Mars Hill was abusive when that just isn't the case. There has been little to no focus at all on the good that was done, and nothing positive so far. And I noticed that too. I mean, before I even read this, I had my own opinion of that it's all negative. It's not positive at all. It's just all criticism. Don't get me wrong, I have my own criticisms of Mark to share and mistakes that I made to fess up to, but I didn't realize the show would focus solely on that. I'm surprised by this. Maybe I was giving you the benefit of the doubt, but I didn't think this was what it was about, and I fear the popularity of the podcast is going to spark even more shows that promote the failings of other churches, which is probably true. So I don't know what the analytics are. Only Christianity Today has access to that, but I'm sure they're, click over here. They have analytics like this. I mean, they've got to be getting so many downloads off of this thing because literally everybody in Christian community is talking about it. And so are we going to do the rise and fall of James MacDonald, the rise and fall of Bill Hybels? And we probably will. And that's just not a project I want to be a part of. The letter continues. And this is how we move forward from these experiences with grace. This is not how we move forward from these experiences with grace. How does this show fit in with Christianity Today's mission to strengthen the church by richly communicating the breadth of the true, good, and beautiful gospel? So that's the mission statement of Christianity Today. I appreciate the quality of the podcast, and while there is truth in a lot of the content, I'm not comfortable with the direction you've taken. In 7 episodes, and as I read this, I thought this too when I was listening to it. This did cross my mind. This captures it very well, part of my problem with it. In 7 episodes so far, the majority of the people you've interviewed are feminists or progressive Christians or people who don't even consider themselves Christians at all. And that's Joshua Harris, of course. He has a whole episode about Joshua Harris, interviewing Joshua Harris, who says he's not even a Christian. When the major theme seems to be that complementarianism is itself is abusive, which is far from reality, the show criticizes a lot of different issues, but nobody is providing the other side, explaining why we did what we did. It seems the thought is that it wouldn't matter. I just don't know how my story and perspective can possibly fit in with the narrative you've developed, and I'm afraid I don't trust that I'd be represented well, even if you were interested in having the other side told. I think it's important for people to hear my perspective as the former communications director and spokesperson for Mars Hill. However, that story may be better suited for my own blog or podcast. Your episodes so far have been littered with misinformation and half-truths and assertions that go unchecked. It's enough to warrant an episode-by-episode response if I ever find the time. Again, I appreciate you reaching out and considering having me on the show. I'm certain your intentions are good. We just don't share the same vision for what is helpful. So I agree. I mean, a lot of the people they have on there and that they reference aren't necessarily conservative evangelical Christians. And then just personally for me, I'm 39. So in the early 2000s, I was in my late teens, early 20s when Mark Driscoll, I remember when Mark Driscoll was big. And I never got into him, never trusted him, never liked him. I preferred R.C. Sproul, John MacArthur, John Piper. I preferred those guys, Paul Washer. When it came to who did I listen to, James White, that's who I listened to. That's who I watched. I never got into Mark Driscoll. I didn't like him. His connection with the emergent church early on spooked me away from him. He was, connecting with Tony Jones and Doug Padgett and these guys, which I never liked them. I always thought that they, I never met them, but theologically they were suspect, and I didn't know. So I steered away from Mark Driscoll. Mark Driscoll had zero influence on my formation in my late teens, early 20s. Zero. Never read a book of his. I might have listened to a sermon or two. I do remember when the stuff came out with his sex sermon series on sex and the stuff he was saying and how vulgar it was. I remember the criticisms of that came out, and I remember when I was like, yeah, this is a little over the top. I remember thinking I never really got deep into it. I was just like, yeah, that's kind of crazy. You shouldn't be talking about oral sex in sermons and talks. That's a little bit over the top. I remember thinking that. But yeah, so as we close, if you've listened this far, thank you, loyal listener and person. Future episodes, I want to just get back into this and walk through this, do the Trinity, deal with Roman Catholicism. There's some stuff. So I've been saving stuff on my save tab on Facebook and bookmarking stuff on Twitter that I could review, some videos I can go over. So I got different things. Of course, continue my stuff on Reformed theology. I don't want to give that up. Just keep doing that. I'll talk about current events. But then, some of the other stuff is, studying the Confessions. I have some series on that I want to continue. Studying Confessions. I started a thing on Synod of Dort that I never finished. Maybe look at the London Baptist Confession, Westminster Confession, and then just do some scripture study, just walk verse by verse through a book of the Bible and see how that goes. And then debates, see if there's any debates out there. I get into debates, but debates kind of get me in the flesh too. I don't know. I'm torn on that. I don't know if I have enough sanctification to debate, because it really gets me fired up and gets me in a headspace that I don't want to be in necessarily. But yeah, that's where we're at. So back from 4-month hiatus. I'm going to try to be disciplined enough to release 1 episode a week if I can. Just start with that goal. Don't overdo it, because I was doing 2-3 episodes a week and it was burning me out. Just try to do 1 episode a week. Get up early. I got up at 5 a.m. today. It's 6:30 a.m. right now in Eastern Standard Time. And just, keep it moving on. So thanks for joining us. Like, subscribe, and share if you want to be notified when I release a new episode. But thank you for tuning in. Thanks, and God bless.